Okay, we'll call this regular session Wednesday, April 17th to order. The time is 7:06. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll open it up for visitor comments. Hi, Nancy. Please state your name for the record.
Nancy Ward, Scappoose. No, I can't. That's much too technical. So I'm here for a couple of reasons. Number one, I want to let you know that I am running for Port Commissioner position number 1. But the second reason, and the more important reason I'm here, is to give you my long overdue thank you for the role that you played during the recent port hearings over the API issue and the expansion of crude oil into our town. And you played a really important role because we had become very frustrated going to the meetings and feeling that we weren't being heard. And so we came here. We also went to the city of Scappoose. But in particular, the last meeting that was at the library was where Mayor Scholl, Councilman Morton really stepped up to the plate. And what you did was you put a voice to all the frustration that we had been feeling. You gave us credibility. You voiced our concerns well. You voiced your own concerns. But the most important thing to me was you listened to us. And you did more than just listen, you heard us. And you took that information and tried to advocate for us. Mm-hmm. We don't see that very often in our county. In fact, I was overwhelmed. I am still talking about it. And I am still telling people that, you know what? Every now and then, democracy works. And when it works really well. Makes us all feel good. And it empowers all of us. Sometimes it even empowers us to run for office. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nancy, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Okay, other visitor comments? Okay. Oh.
Shauna Harrison, St. Helens. I just wanted to ask, there's been talks lately in regards to our area being rural or suburban. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to ask if you, Jacob, possibly would probably be are we considered rural or suburban?
Depends on what grant we're applying for, right?
Yeah, that's a good answer. I mean, I live in a world of technicalities.
Yes.
We are an incorporated city within an urban growth boundary, and I would call us urban. But, you know, if you're a research student analyzing different populated areas, what's the context?
So I sell real estate, and there is a lot of differentiating views in regards to our growth and where we've kind of came across the brink. A lot of people who get loans for houses, especially 250 to 350, use the USDA loan. We're still qualified for, the rural loan. And there's been a little bit of talk of people stating that the city of St. Helens, and with current growth projection, is becoming suburban. Now,
So it's a federal definition, maybe?
So, for example, when I do broker price opinions for banks, when banks are getting ready to foreclose on houses, we have to substantiate whether you're doing, if we're city, we're suburban, we're rural. I believe those are all. I can send an email to you and open the conversation up a little bit more. I was just kind of curious if there was any jurisdiction by definition that we are currently running under. Though I realize grant to grant, case to case.
It sounds like federal bureaucracy to me. Well, no, it really does.
Anytime I go to a conference, it's rural, and by federal, I had this number, but John said, yeah, it's federal. It's 50,000 or more population before you become urban.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
one
we're
definition.
rural in lots
Yeah.
of places.
Yes. But
Yeah, no, I was curious.
anytime I'm at a conference, they already have me pretty much automatically identified as rural.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're recognized as by
I
other
mean, Ford
cities.
Family Foundation makes
Lee,
the
it's rural.
cut in the low 30s. So 30, 32, 33. I can't remember the specific number, but 14 is away from 30. something.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just was curious because it's just been, it always was rural. And just recently, I've had other agents from Portland tell me that we're suburban. Not that I believe them. That's why I came down.
Can I start wearing coveralls to work now? No
You
shirt.
sure can. We're still rural.
No shirt.
He's working on the beard.
All right. Other business
You still
comments?
have to wipe your feet, though.
Okay, not seeing any, so we're gonna get a Urban Trails Subcommittee presentation. Yeah, it's urban, not rural.
We call this an urban trail. That's what we call it. Rural, right. Depends on what you want it to be, right? Let me keep this here.
Yeah, you're gonna have to pass it back and forth, and
You can't just pop it. You can't pop it out of the stand and pass it back and forth. You need to have it up.
We can share if you need to. We can let a tree be saved.
I think he might have came off the back. That's important. That's an important piece right there.
Thank you, sir.
You've got to have one. This is probably the important thing, right? This is probably the important thing. The rest of it, kind of listen to it. My name is Jerry Belcher, and I'm on the Parks and Trails Commission. And for the last several months, we've had a subcommittee that's been working on an urban trail. And before we start here, I'd like to introduce everyone here. We have Howard Blumenthal, and we have Carmen Dunn. And in the back of the room, we have Elisa, who put together a PowerPoint. But we decided not to do the PowerPoint because we had little technical difficulties, or the city did, with it. And we also have two other Parks and Trail Commissioners in the back. Linda Pettit, who's new to it. And if I can get Ben's last name right here, he just started coming. Ben Tescorino.
no, isn't it Trezo?
Ben Tescorino.
Oh.
Okay. In the last Parks Commission meeting we had, we passed a motion for this to be put on to the master plan, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the presentation here. So we will start here with the St. Helens Historic Riverfront Parks Trail. And that's what we use it as a working title. Obviously, the city can make it the name they want to, but we thought it covered a lot of things because it's the historic riverfront, and it goes through 5 parks, and also you can see Sand Island, so if you count the 6th one there. With that, we will go ahead and start with Carmen.
So we presented this at the Parks Commission meeting, and we wanted to bring it here to kind of bring it to your attention and see if we can get this into the Parks Master Plan. So that's kind of where we're going with this. So we really wanted to come up with a designated route with a set distance here in St. Helens that provides safety for pedestrians, bringing awareness to the city parks. So this trail would pass through 6 of our parks. It would have views of the river, mountains, and Sand Island, and increase the livability of St. Helens. So it would also pass by the local shops, so bringing awareness of local shops and businesses, and would be a highlight for both residents and tourists. It could be a community project to get this up and running, and could be used for events like fun runs and walkathons. It's 2.5 miles, so the distance is right for that. Other organizations could use the trails for events, and then it highlights historic sites and scenic overlooks. And it would be a good opportunity to showcase the new riverfront development that St. Helens is moving towards, and would promote healthy activity for the city. So now we're going to pass it back to Jerry, and Jerry's going to talk about kind of what it is and what the loops look like.
All right. If you'll turn to the third page, this page here, you can see an overview of the trail there. And we divided this into 2 loops. And so it's really in a figure 8. So one loop we call the River Loop, which is the south loop, which is the light blue loop there. And as you can see, that's 1.4 miles in length. And then the darker blue link, the northern link there, we call the Marina Loop. So if an individual or a family or someone decided to walk it, they could go either direction. They could do it in a figure 8. They could do one loop. They could do the other loop, etc. As far as ADA is considered, Americans with Disabilities, the only part that would probably be open to them would be eventually from the boardwalk, from where the trail leaves the river on the south end, all the way up to Great Cliffs Park on the north end. The rest of the trail, I would consider it to be a moderate trail because there's some steep areas in it, and there's some areas that definitely need some improvements. And I'll talk about those a little bit as we walk our way through the trail here. So if you flip over to the next page, the large one here, what we envision is the trails. You can start anywhere you want to on the trail, but we envision the trail starting back by Seaman in that area there. And we would like to see a large kiosk there. And this kiosk would serve several purposes. One, it would have a map of the trail so people can see where it is. It would also have a diagram of the city where businesses are. So when people come up from the boat ramp in the summer, and when the people come up from the boat ramp anytime, they could look at the kiosk and they could say, oh, there's a walking trail here. We can go for a walk. And there's a dog park. We can go take our dog to the dog park. Or they can look on it and say, oh, there's a restaurant here. Or they can look on it, the trail goes within probably 50 yards of the liquor store. So if people say, yeah, I need to, get a fifth of vodka, hey, I can go do that. And there's a lot of people that want to do that. So maybe even the night after this meeting. But the trail would really have, more benefits than just the health benefits. We think that it would. I'll talk about that at the end. So we envision the trail starting at that location, and then it would pass through Riverfront Trail. What is it? Riverview Trail, Riverview Park there, and along the boardwalk or esplanade that's going to be developed. And we envision that to be a very nice area eventually when it gets developed, and then it will pass on down to the far end, and it will go up through Nob Hill Park. In Nob Hill Park, there's an area that we would like to see an overlook. And when we talk about an overlook, we're probably talking about a picnic table, maybe some type of signage that points out to Salvi's Island and some other things there. And then we'd continue on through Nob Hill Park, and we'd go down 3rd Street. Now, as far as the committee is concerned, we spent hours talking about 3rd Street and the cliff because there are a couple areas that there are real issues that have to be addressed here. So basically, while you're kind of looking at this, pull this one out so you can kind of look at this diagram and also look at this diagram. And Carmen sent me a nice message the other day with a picture of a pedestrian trail. I think this is in Seattle,
No, it was Orlando.
Orlando. All right. Okay. So I'll pass this around and you take a look at this. And this is a pedestrian trail that's in Orlando. Like I'll just pass it down because you can take a look at it. And there's also pedestrian lanes, my understanding, in Seattle, correct?
Yeah, I saw them in Seattle.
You saw them in Seattle, so making her verify
maybe
that.
Tell them what the issue is.
Yeah, tell them what the issue is. Okay. Okay, this is kind of a major issue here. We thought it was a major issue. So if you look at this diagram here, so you come out of Nob Hill Park on 3rd Street here. And in the past, the city has passed 2 ordinances. I won't bother to, well, maybe I will read them. I put those in there so people could purchase land in front of their house, 15 feet of land in front of their house. And I guess the important thing is maybe on section 3 of both of them, I'm looking at ordinance 3163 right here. Section 3 there, it says the city reserves to itself and any operating public utility provider easement over entire 3rd Street, which used to be called Oak Street, vacated street right-of-way for access, maintenance, and repair of any existing or future public facility or public utility. So a public trail would be a public facility. And it's my understanding that the sidewalks could still, and the other ordinance says pretty much the same thing. They were just passed at different times. So what this presents is people own land in front of their house, even though the sidewalk, we think, the city can use. We've walked that area several times. I've probably walked it 100 times in my life or more, probably 500 times. Howard's probably walked it many, many more times. So there is a sidewalk that goes along, most of the way that goes along the west side of 3rd Street there. But it's in very bad repair. And you get down here, it only goes to about halfway here. And at the beginning, right here in this area right here, it's falling over. And plus some people own land there. So what we recommend through this area is what we call a pedestrian lane, just like a bike lane, that would pass up all the way up to Cowlitz Street, or where the or is there, there's a sidewalk that goes to the right, and this is a very good sidewalk. So you could have a pedestrian lane that went up a block and probably a block and 2/3, and then you could cut over to the sidewalk right here. And then the sidewalk does continue around the corner on Cowlitz Street to where I have it indicated here on the diagram. So what we would like to see is a pedestrian lane like that's in the picture that's in the email that Carmen has there on my iPad. And what we recommend, and in St. Louis Street in Portland, which is in the St. John's area, they have bike lanes there. And on St. Louis Street, they have a bike lane that's designed kind of like this. It has the double lane on the inside. It has the single lane where the cars are parked over here on this side. There's a lot of truck traffic in that area, so I assume that they have it so that the trucks stay away from the bike lane. But what we would like to see is a double lane, then with a rumple strip like it's on the side of roads, you know, so if you run off, you catch it before you run in the ditch, with a rumple strip up the. Also, there'd be signs that are posted in the area, pedestrian lane, you know, maybe 20 miles speed limit or so. But the reason I'm spending so much time on that is that is an area that needs to be addressed. And we think that it could be addressed that way. We're not engineers, but you know, we've seen other cities do it. And this street, as Howie lives at the very end of it, it's I think he would attest to this. I didn't ask him, but This street is very lightly used as far as traffic is concerned. I've walked it many times, and not very many times have I ever even come to a car. But safety is of paramount. You know, we can't have anyone walking a trail and getting hit in the city getting sued. Okay, enough said about
I would also say that the reason that we opted not to use the sidewalks that are there is because they are in really terrible shape. So, and because they're right along, like going through people's property, the people who bought it back. So we thought that the pedestrian lane would be less intrusive to the residents that live along there, and also safer for the people walking the trail.
how you live there. You want to add anything to that?
I think you guys have covered a lot of it. Mainly the sidewalks in that neighborhood too. Like on my side of the street, it only goes. I'm the only full-width sidewalk on that side of the street.
I always walk down the middle of the street when I'm up there.
Everybody up there walks down the middle of the street.
Well, the road doesn't go through.
No. So it's just local traffic that's going fairly slow. You know. So I mean, I don't know where the city goes with how far you have to go and have something. I mean,
No.
it can be as elaborate as we want it to be, or you could just have a few arrows pointing down the side of the street. The general.
The only
direction.
concern I have is when you make a lane and you put marks on it, it implies safety. You know, I know that when I've come up with great ideas to keep me and my kids safe, I've always gotten pushback. Sue's not here to tell us, but she goes, anytime you imply that there's a pedestrian strip, people think they're safe, and then somebody goes backing out, and you're not as safe as you thought. And so I know that. I mean, I would like to have staff weigh in on what they think of the
Jake?
proposal, the idea.
Jacob, are there sidewalks supposedly there even though there's grass there?
Honestly, I can't remember. This wasn't in the packet for review in advance.
So the sidewalks were in place. Then the property was vacated 15 more feet out towards the street.
Yeah.
So the sidewalks are placed 15 feet away from the street rather than adjacent to the street.
Yeah, in this side of town, a lot of times these old sidewalks are along the old 80-foot right-of-way.
Right.
The old 4-foot sidewalks. It's pretty classic on this town. And in some of these vacations, which I now disagree with because of some of the confusion that it caused, and case in point here, it's I don't like talking about them. I think it's a dark era for the city granting these vacations. That was a different time period. But we reserved the easement because of the presence of the sidewalks. So they could get it for their yard requirements, lot coverage, but the easement was reserved because that's where the dedicated pedestrian passageway was at. And we said, okay, we don't want to replace these. This is where people are supposed to go. Thus, we're going to reserve an easement.
I'm just curious of why there's two different ordinances stating the same thing, one signed by Kalberg and one signed by Peterson, and I've looked them over, and they appear to be the exact same ordinance, and I'm just curious of why there's two different ordinances.
The reason is
when there's already an ordinance.
If we looked at all the different ordinances for vacations,
yes,
I mean it's a vacation
well, they just
application
created a new one.
is ultimately adopted
Okay.
by an ordinance,
Yeah.
and you could have, one person could vacate 100 feet, another person could vacate 300. They're done at different time periods,
Yeah,
different
it's
ordinances.
They're specific though in nature, where it talks about Plymouth and Third, and I mean they're actually like somebody maybe didn't take it up on their first opportunity to do it, and then came back to the council. Is what it appears to me, because they appear to be identical.
And a lot of times you'll see same language used. It's template. A lot of it's template language.
12th and Plymouth and 3rd Street, and 3rd Street, Oak Street, and Plymouth Street right-of-ways, which I'm assuming Oak Street is maybe Plymouth Street or 12th Street for another name?
Third, yeah.
Oak is
Oak is
3rd.
third.
Okay.
The old name.
So I just, and I looked at the ordinance, and the only thing that changed is E in the older one, basically.
Third Street also has an older name than Oak. It was called Summer Street. 4th Street was Winter Street.
Oh, really?
That's 1913 terminology.
But since this wasn't in the packet and Jacob hasn't had a chance to look at it, I don't know if Jenny had a chance to look at it. Maybe we should have the people that wrote the Parks Master Plan actually have an opinion of it.
Yeah,
That
Jenny.
would be Jenny.
Jenny talked to me a little bit about it, and so she's gone this week, and she's been insulating me from this. But
Yeah.
we have talked, and I can give our thoughts once they're done with their presentation.
Okay.
So, one solution to this problem is to run a sidewalk on the west side there. There's a sidewalk that goes most of the way through, probably, but that would be relatively, it would be a lot more expensive than a pedestrian lane, but it would probably be safer, too, for people not backing out also. There would also need to be a crosswalk added here on Tualatin Street. And as you turn around the corner on Cowlett Street, there'd also need to be a crosswalk here. I talked to Jenny. Well, I should thank her for helping us a lot on this, which I meant to do at the beginning, and I didn't. But her suggestion was to have it across the street here in this area here. So there would have to be crosswalks also added there. So as we continue on down, the trail would then cross Cowlett Street, hit the sidewalk, go down to 2nd Street, and then head north. And as it heads north, there's another area before it starts down to John Gum School where there could be another nice lookout or viewpoint. And this is fairly steep, so this part of the trail, when we put it on, we'd have to say it's moderate on the kiosk because some people would not be able to walk down that, even though I've been doing it for 40, almost 50 years, but it is a problem, would be a problem for people to do that. So then as you reach the bottom, there's the parking lot that's right in here, and we recommend that another kiosk be right here. So if individuals wanted to just do the 1.5-mile loop, they could then cut right across the parking lot, go right down to Plaza Park, and finish their walk right there. If people wanted to continue, then they would continue up 2nd Street till they got to St. Helens Street, make a left on St. Helens Street, and go by the old school, and then head down 4th Street. And I forgot the name of the father of St. Helens.
1910. Henry
Knighton.
1910.
So the Knighton House is right here on 4th Street. And, we might want to have a sign that points out the Knighton House. And there's also the Cozy Corner and the Columbia and the liquor store. So there's lots of businesses in this area. So if people wanted to use the restroom or get something to eat, that's available for them there. Then the trail would continue on down to Godfrey Park. And Godfrey Park, we want to highlight it. I know that the city is in the process of making a lot of upgrades on Godfrey Park, which would be pretty cool. And then you head up through Godfrey Park, and then you end up on 2nd Street. And this area right here is another area where we'd have to probably have a pedestrian lane of some type. And again, that would be up for the engineers, the city, to really decide which side it should be on. And then the trail would continue on down to the end of Wyeth Street. And right there is probably the nicest public overlook in all of St. Helens. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Yep.
And that area could be developed. It's dangerous because there'd have to be a fence put in front for people don't fall off. There's also a large Douglas fir tree there for the trail heads down, and I think he said one time a guy did fall down on the left hand as you're facing it.
Just recently, somebody fell off that cliff.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
they might have been intoxicated, I understand, but still, yeah, it could be dangerous.
They got that fifth of vodka.
That's right. You got it. Yeah, that's exactly right. But anyway, there's a beautiful viewpoint there, and Wyeth was one of the early settlers in this area. Well, he really wasn't a settler. He built what he called a fort, which is really a trading center on Salvies Island. It lasted a couple years in the early 1830s. But I would like to see that, we'd like to see that called Wyeth, Point, lookout, you know, and it's really beautiful. You can see the courthouse, you can see downtown, you can see the marina, you can see Sand Island, you can see Lewis River, you can see Mount Hood, you can see Mount St. Helens. It's really got a lot of appeal to it. Then the next real problem area, and I'd be willing to work on this myself, is there's a trail that goes down there. And this trail would definitely need a lot of work. I used to live about a block and a half from this trail. Took my kids down to feed the ducks all the time. I've never had any trouble negotiating it, but it is not safe. It really is not safe. So there would have to be some money invested in that trail. But we feel like it is very important that the trail continue this way, because at the bottom of this trail is Gray Cliff Park, and there's been a lot of work done on that. And also, starting this summer, my understanding is there's going to be shuttles, commercial shuttles that run back and forth through the island. So there's a lot of appeal for people. I'll get to that at the end. But there's reasons for people to come to St. Helens to actually, you know, to see some of our historic downtown and parks. And then so that's a major area. I don't want to dodge that at all. That's going to require some work, but I think it can definitely be managed. And I'd be willing to donate time to do work on that. And then the trail would continue down River Street. And then we would like to see it jog up St. Helens Street to First Street, because that way it goes through downtown. It goes by the old theater, you know, the old Union Hall, you know, and the businesses that are down there. And then it would continue on down to Plaza Park, which is not a city park, it's a county park, but it's still a park. So in just this short walk, people would get to see a lot of beautiful areas, and we'll talk about that later. But that would be the trail. Okay? And we will move on. Okay, we won't talk money, because we didn't talk money. That's you guys' job. But Howie's going to talk about priorities that are needed to actually get this trail built.
Some of the
Mike?
Some of the priorities that we're kind of classifying as one is a safety fence at the top of the cliff trail, you know, improvements to the cliff trail. You know, I mean, we got that beautiful grant in Nob Hill. I wonder if Jenny could get more grant for some of the stair and that trail too someday, you know. But that's good. Signage is what we'd have to come up with. The marked pedestrian lane, or just a way to delineate where the trail goes along the sides of the road. And then the crosswalks, you know. Secondary things would be logos to be painted on the sidewalks, benches, kiosks, and mile markers. I notice a lot of people already coming by my house that are, in a way, walking half this loop already. So a lot of people would probably really enjoy to be able to see that it's a little more formal, and that it actually goes farther, and that they could see a lot more. So I'm keeping this part short.
Okay. Carmen? This page now.
Logo. So the next piece we talked about was potentially designing a logo for the trail to be used to mark the trail path on the sidewalks and roads, so that people know where they're going. We thought of a couple ideas, but ultimately it's up to the city to decide how they want to proceed with it, if at all. We thought we could do a student contest, so something for the youth in the city to make a significant contribution to design a logo to be used, or let the Parks Department create a logo consistent with the style guidelines for the city, something that's easily painted on the sidewalks and maintained. And then the other option would be that the commissions could work together. The Parks Commission and Arts Commission could work together to come up with a logo. Yeah. That's it. Sure. Yeah. Do you want to talk about more about the logo? Go for it.
I like the logo of the kiosk. I mean, cupola, but that's because it can be seen from just about every place. Well, I'm kind of like a salesman here. I am excited about this. This is something that we've been working on for a long time. And what we would like to see the city do is to direct the city staff to look into financing this. It's my understanding that the state of Oregon has money for urban trails.
Yes.
Because they're encouraging people to get out and walk. So a large portion of this may be able to be financed by a grant from the state. So money is always an issue. I know that because, you know, priorities and everything. But as just in closing, the way that we look at the urban trail is we are the Parks and Trails Commission. Originally, we started talking about this just to highlight the parks, but we look at this as an investment in health, so people can actually, you know, have a safe trail to walk on. That's an interesting trail to walk on. That's a beautiful trail to walk on. We also look at it as when people come here and visit, that they can see the kiosks in different places and they can be able to go to businesses, because we've been told in our commission meetings that people in the summertime will come up from the river. They'll kind of look around there and say, you know, where do we go from here? And they might pick one way to go or another way. But if there's a map there and they can see this, they would do that. Another thing is, I think that this, at least I think, I don't know if the rest of the commission thinks this, that this would be a place where people, a number of people would actually come here for the trail. I know that my wife and I used to be really big walkers. Now we're just kind of average walkers, but we've probably walked every trail in the Portland area, in the Beaverton area, and people go on the internet and they look at places to go. And so this would bring people into the town. And also, I think with the development here with the old Boise property, you know, in another 15 or 20 years, this town is going to look a lot different. I think, you know, for a better word, it's going to be redeveloped I think in the downtown here when that. And I think this would, you know, a lot of people that come here and look at the trail or go to maybe some of the restaurants here, they'd say, hey, this is really not a bad place to live. It's fairly close to Portland. It's got a lot of advantages. So bottom line is we feel like this is really an investment, and it's something that we'd like to see the city pursue aggressively with grants.
Go ahead.
Can I just say one more thing? So when we talked about it too, I mean, we tried to do the priority 1 and priority 2 pieces, because not all the pieces have to be put in place for people to start using this and for us to start marketing it. I think you can get awareness out there about the loop and about the trail and get people using it, and then work on future improvements. So focus on the priority 1 stuff first, and then in the future we could also add to it. So we designed it in loops around some of the parks, but you know, in the future we could build off of it and have more loops that hit different pieces of the city. So
Looking at this, there's some real problems if you're handicapped. Those stairs and a couple places you need stairs are bad news. Some of these places are pretty good for riding on a bike beside it. Any thoughts on some internal loops on this that would make it handicap available? As again, back to the plan, so I'm covering 2 people. Obviously, some places they can't.
Our thinking, Commissioner Topaz, was not a loop. It never entered our mind. Our thinking about the ADA was that people would be able to go from one end of the boardwalk up to the Great Cliffs area. They'd be able to move along that area. However, in the downtown area, there's numerous areas that people could go and walk and go on loops. But our thinking was that the ADA, and we'd have that on the kiosk, that the ADA designated portion is the portion, you know, from Great Cliffs Park down to Frogmore Slough there, and and that the trail does present problems because it does have steps and it is steep. But, you know, the other thing too is I know people, a lot of people look at that as a disadvantage, but there are a lot of people that do like to walk down cliffs, walk up cliffs, you know, go down steps, walk through parks like your park that has gravel in it. So, yeah, there are some negative things because the whole trail is not ADA. They won't be able to do it. That's for sure. But it does have a lot of, it does have well over a third of the area ADA can use, and it does have some areas that are pretty neat to go through.
Well, the thought I saw, I could see putting some short internal loops in this, so basically going around some of the hard spots. The one spot I'm surprised you did not look at is we have a railroad trestle at the end of the old veneer plant, and it's a fantastic piece of ground along the river there.
Well, I think, you know, Carmen was talking about, this is what I hear all the time, Commissioner. I don't mean to be disrespectful here, but I don't know how many times I've heard this from people. Every time we come up with a trail, hey, we've been trying to work on this trail for a long time. And they said, oh, we need a trail that goes here, you know, and I know that trail could continue on. It could go over and go all the way over and hit Milton Creek, and it could go all the, you know, the way up to other parks. But we've got to start somewhere.
Well, then my suggestion is this. This is where you design it, but you have a dotted line of other things to go. Because right now, you basically show a picture that's closed off. You should also, on this picture, these are other thoughts we have. Also, we have the biological thing over towards Gray Cliffs going to Dalton Lake. A dotted line. This is also could be connected.
Hey, Steve. I think the missing part is the existing Parks and Trails master plan, which has an extensive network of trails. This plan is a subtle modification of trails 1, 2, 3, and 13 as adopted in that plan. I don't see this as something as that we would adopt into the master plan. What it looks like to me is you're trying to advance aspects of the existing plan. So what I see you're doing is you're trying to create an implementation plan to initiate the city's, and some of these are high priority plans in the parks plan. And so it's certainly germane, and of course we've already gone through grants for some of these, like the boardwalk.
So exactly. Then that work has been done. Mr. Topaz, you need to look through the master plan. And one of the things that I celebrate in this is that it is an implementation. It is an initiation of getting something done. And yes, we're going to have so many naysayers, hey, take it this way, take it that way, do this, do that. No, we can't put paint on the asphalt because it's unsafe. And those kinds of issues, and I would like to hear from staff later on as this develops of what is safe and what isn't safe, and our police department weighing in as well as our engineers and whatever. But there's always been, since I've come to this town, a way of saying no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that.
Yep.
And finding ways to say no. And hopefully, these three individuals from the Parks Commission and the other individuals
Two or three back
three
there.
testifying
Yeah, three back there.
are going to make a difference, and hopefully this council and staff can say, yes, we can do it, because we know that there's grants there. We know that this is a good idea, and it just needs, and it's a starting point. It isn't something, it's something that we can build on. So I'd love to see this go forward. I have a passion for getting out and walking through communities. It's the way you get to know culture when you visit a different city. You walk and you meet people and you appreciate the architecture, you go to places that has the most beautiful views in the city on the Columbia River. There's no place like it. So, yes, I think it's worth investing in.
Yeah, and I mean, we really thought about this as a phase one. Like, this is piece one. Let's try to push to get it off the ground and get something going so that we can build momentum to get more going. It's the first piece, and so we really want to see something happen with it. We don't have to have a pedestrian lane. All of these pieces don't have to be in place. We just tried to do the research to figure out potential options to get it to go along this path. So I think it's up to the city to decide what legitimately can be done so that we can get this moving.
Well, I talked to Jerry a little bit about this. You've been working on this, you all have been, very diligently for quite some time. So I applaud you, and I love the passion behind this. Was talking about some other areas, kind of like Councilor Topaz, but then I got his vision is wanting to hit these key points of lookouts and, kind of highlighting our riverfront from different angles. And that's what it's about, and he's a big walker, and I'm a boater, so but you identified that it could be something that you've seen other cities do and be really it sounds to me like a real destination point, like maybe one of top 20 in Oregon or something, potentially. I'm not sure, with the views and everything that we have here. We really do have a beautiful little town. You really have to look at it, and the revitalization of the downtown area, done right, and you're all going to be involved in that process, is going to be a very quaint little town here. So,
as I said, this is the beginning. And as I stated several times, this is an investment. I think it's actually an investment in our city. Not, I think it's going to bring, I don't know if it'll ever recap its money, but it's going to, health benefits and everything. How do you weigh those? But I've walked, a lot of the trails in the Portland Beaverton area, and I think this trail, as Rick said, I never really thought about that until you mentioned it, is that this would be one of the more interesting and more beautiful, trails around. I think there would be people that would actually make this a destination to come to. There are issues, but I think that all the issues can be.
But there's walkarounds.
Well,
there's walkarounds.
I mean,
and like Commissioner Topaz says, and I know I talked to Keith one time about it too. Like when you go down to 2nd Street there, one possibility through when you get to after you walk through Gravecliff Park, when you get to 2nd Street there, besides going over to Wyeth Street and to what I call the Wyeth Point Lookout, you could make a right on 2nd Street and go down and go back any way you wanted to, but you could walk back on 2nd Street and then back downtown. There's lots of options. There's lots of options that could take place there, but not everyone is going to be able to use this trail. So that's up front. But people that are ADA, I'm making an assumption here, but most of the people that go to parks, and they're ADA, they expect that they're not going to be able to go to everywhere in a park. You go to a park and there's you go to a swamp and there's a wood sidewalk there, or you go to an area and there's an overlook, but or you go to an area and there's a gravel trail or something. So most ADA,
Multnomah Falls hiking trails, they're just
and speaking of safety, I've walked in trails in Portland that are
no different
than this.
Absolutely.
Busier streets.
and a lot busier streets.
I think the worst place in this whole thing is coming down White Street down to the marina. That needs a staircase. There are a couple of places right there that are very good lookouts. At the top of the stairs, and if you go north under the trees, it's a dead-end street, is a super lookout. You can roll your wheelchair down 2nd Street rather than use the stairs your speed by, but you can go that way. Again, just on your information map, you put your dotted lines. This is where you would have a walk around if you're in a wheelchair.
Or just reduce capacity, because there's lots of folks that are just reduced capacity.
And
Well, I think, Rick, I'll
They
just
just
kind
can't do a cliff, but
Yeah.
they can do a trail just
I
fine.
really like that you went out of the way and you even showed it, Carmen, on your phone that Carmen had sent you, or your tablet there, where they have done similar things without a sidewalk. I mean, there's always a what if, like there always is a what if, and we're just talking about playgrounds today in Godfrey Park, and they were talking about chips. We had asphalt, we had metal, we climbed, and it was just.
We lived without safety seats.
We're very safe, very, very safety orientated to where we've taken some of the risk out of the reward. Everything I've did in life always required a little bit of risk if I wanted the reward. I could always sit back and fret and chew my nails and say, what if, and do nothing. I like to call it analysis paralysis. That's what I call it, analysis paralysis.
Well, with that, we put a lot of work into this, but we think this would be really a good thing for our city. We think it would make this a better town to live in. It
Well
would
done,
really,
Parks
I think,
Commission.
raise our regional
I understand your concern.
presence by a
No,
lot.
that's not
Have
Because
you looked into or try to involve the signage that's coming in? There is, a group of signs coming in. Is this just going to be part of, they've
We
got the
talked about
signs?
that. You mean like the
Wayfinding.
Yeah.
we talked about that and potentially having. I mean, it's up to the city to decide how all of this gets implemented. This is just our thoughts, but we did talk about having it consistent, the marketing consistent with the wayfinding plan. So
The thought
think it
was
makes
they would
sense.
do the signage for you rather than you have to worry about it.
maybe. I mean, that's all up to the city to decide how this all gets implemented and rolled out.
Be-
We
be-
can't.
Being a boater, I could never understand why the rocks right down here. You couldn't see it from this side, but why it doesn't say St. Helens while you're coming by on a boat. I've never understood that.
Okay, if you just hit my pet peeve I've been on for about 10 years. Get the railroad bridge painted down there where it crosses Milton Creek that says, have the railroad, but St. Helens, and it would make it a lot better, in my opinion. I've been on that for a long time. No one wants to do that. Because the railroad, they can do what they want to do. I lost my thought there, but
No, that'd be cool. It would be a nice little.
Hey,
It got taken down to refurbish and they didn't put it back up, is what happened. Because I put it there.
the only thing I was gonna say, because Jenny's out of town and she's been working with you, is just to let Jenny follow up with us and let us know how this, because she knows how to talk where I would understand
yeah,
of how it works together. You know what I mean? 'Cause
kind of
there's a lot good ideas.
answering,
A
like,
lot of good connectivity that I wouldn't have thought about. I got lost in my old neighborhood last week, and my coworkers were like, "This is a really good place to be lost." And I go, "My brother and I used to walk here because we lived up the street." And I think people lose that opportunity of just appreciating the architecture and the historic homes. And I think there's value in that and bringing that back as an activity for families to do. And to your point, boaters, people camping on the island. I think that there's value in that, and I think to just have that conversation, for us to have a conversation with Jenny about, because she wrote the trail plan, to how does that work, Jenny? Because I don't want to undermine what she's done and undermine the staff. I
And it
just
ties
have
4
kind of-
parks together? 6?
6.
Oh, wow.
6.
Wow.
But I've walked most of it, just not all on the same day, because that would require oxygen.
So
They're big hills.
the parks master plan connects Nob Hill and Godfrey via the 5th Street right of way,
Yes.
which would be a lot more natural area. Is there a reason that you chose?
Yeah, we chose to go down 4th Street because of, 5th Street.
Yeah, it's a right of way. It's largely
I've walked
unapproved.
that before. Have you walked it?
It's portions.
It needs, it needs fixed,
Need
yes.
some fix.
So you're trying to
I'm just
select
it's-
the easier
it's,
half.
It's pretty rustic. I mean, it's even worse than the Cliff Trail. Parts of it is.
Yeah.
Parts of it are. I've done that. I've purposely walked through there, and I had to hack my way through blackberries and stuff.
Wow.
It's pretty steep. Through there.
That's how all the trails started out.
Yeah, that's true. But, getting back to some of the concerns that some of the commissioners had was when we did this, our feeling was, one, the engineering, that would be left up to the staff. I mean, we've got engineers that are on our staff, the people that are going to.
Good park planners.
Yeah, that's what their job is. I mean, they're engineers, and then as far as finance, we just, as Howie, in his presentation, he had 2 priorities, but we didn't put we don't know how much a sign costs. Are we going to put in a new sidewalk on 3rd Street? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? I would imagine Jenny is the one who's going to play a big part in putting this together, and probably a big part in getting the money, and then probably Sue is going to play a big part in the engineering and the city planners. So
It's a good idea, a good process, and it bears more conversation.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is here already,
Yeah.
The Fifth Street's a great
So-
idea, but that could be years.
It starts with the people in our committees and our commissions, and that's where it starts. And hopefully you're throwing the ball into our court, and hopefully we can take it.
So what we'll do is we are going to hand this packet that we've received to Jenny, and I know you've been working a little bit with her, but and we're gonna have, as long as I'm not too full in my next work session, what do you think, Jacob? 10, 15, maybe 15 minutes on just a couple?
I
Do you think that'd be too soon?
Instead of selecting a date, there's a lot going on right now.
Yes.
We have a housing needs analysis that's at
That's
the
true.
end. We have
That
the
is true.
riverfront connector that's the end.
Yep.
Once the housing needs analysis is done with the consultants, then we have to adopt it. That's going to be followed by housing policy and regulation updates, in addition to all the work we have in the city's properties.
Yes.
I think it's a little dangerous to say we're going to do
Yeah.
this on this
Okay.
date.
I get it.
We can bring it back.
No, we're
But
not
we
gonna
need-
let
we need
not gonna let
time.
this go. Yes, we're gonna.
Give Jenny time.
We're
need
gonna.
time, yeah.
I appreciate all the work that Jerry is and the Parks Commission has. Yes, and Trails Commission has put into this, and we're not gonna just let it go.
Not lost.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'll talk to Jenny about it when she gets back.
Let's
next
make
week.
it happen.
Got park
Let's
lovers.
make it happen.
Railroad bridge painted too.
But
Hey,
my feeling is it's going to be baby steps. Is which section do you start on first?
Yeah.
But
small.
that's a discussion to have
Low hanging
later.
It depends on, I think, Jacob, too, it depends on what kind of grant that the state is willing to give us.
They're there.
I think that my opinion, you ask for, make an estimate of how much this is gonna cost, and you ask for everything from the state of Oregon, because they wanna promote urban trails.
Sure.
And they have the money to build urban trails. I mean, so most of this money might come from the city.
And-
But I'm going back. This is an investment in this city. This is something that's gonna make this place a
Yep.
better place to live and a better place to visit.
And the fact that this mirrors a lot of stuff in the adopted plan, including trails that are identified as a high priority, is going to be a
Easier.
huge aspect for grant obtainment.
Right.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks
So-
for staying, Jacob.
Thank you guys for the presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
For the time.
Yep.
Thanks, Howard.
Okay, ordinance, first reading, ordinance number 3236, an ordinance amending the St. Helens Municipal Code chapter 3, or, excuse me, 1.1 through, let me start over, chapter 13.14 regarding use of portable privies.
Move we approve ordinance.
It's first reading.
You do both? Oh, sorry. my
First
bad.
reading. Ordinance number 3237, an ordinance amending the St. Helens Municipal Code, Chapter 3.12 to modify the utility privilege tax levied on utility operating in the city without a franchise. Okay, resolution 1843, a resolution consenting the city of St. Helens inclusion in the Columbia County Rider Transit Service District.
I move we adopt resolution number 1843 as read.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve resolution 1843. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Okay, approve and authorize for signature. A, license and maintenance agreement with Columbia County for kiosk on county property, and B, contract payments.
I move we authorize for approval 7A and B as read.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve 7A through B as read. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Okay, appointments to city boards and commissions. Do we have any?
Margaret will introduce the name of the person at the board.
Use your mic, please.
Oh, Margaret is going to tell us who was acted upon at the last committee meeting.
Arts and Cultural Commission would like to recommend for appointment Maggie Clayton.
No, good.
I make a move that this recommendation be followed.
I can't second
I'll
it.
second it.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to give Maggie Clayton to the Boards of Arts and Cultural Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
There's another one.
Okay.
The Parks Commission recommended appointing Lynn Pettit.
Yep.
So I recommend that the council appoints Lynn Pettit to the Parks Commission.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to appoint Lynn Pettit to the Parks and Trails Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Lynn, for your stepping up to the plate. Okay, that's it, right, Kathy?
Yep.
All right. Okay, consent agenda for acceptance. A, Parks and Trails Commission minutes dated March 11th, 2019. B, Planning Commission minutes dated March 12th, 2019. C, Housing Need Advisory Committee meeting number 3, minutes dated March 12th, 2019.
Move we accept consent agenda 9A through C.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve consent agenda 9A through C. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Consent agenda for approval. A, Little Free Library for Campbell Park donated by Thomas O'Hanlon. B, Little Free Library for Walnut Tree Park donated by Lynn Pettit. C, Cascade Reserve Allocation Annual Adjustment from 86.3 to 79.8%. D, OLCC license. E, Accounts Payable Bill List.
Move we approve consent agenda for approval, items A through E as read.
Okay,
Second.
motion's been made and seconded. Tried jumping the gun there to approve consent agenda A through E as read. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we're going to go to our budget, what we left off in our work session. We're going to give it over to Matt Brown, Finance Director.
I'm going to come up here and connect my laptop so I can
Okay.
show you a graph for the discussion. So you all have the handout that I gave you earlier.
Yep.
So that handout, trying to speak a little loud so hopefully the mic can hear me.
It can't hear you.
So the handout you have in front of you is a listing of all the budget requests that are an increase over the last previous year. I have it broken out pretty much by department. There are 3 major funds that are impacted on these budget requests. I'd like to, if you're okay with it, talk about the first one, which is the engineering, GIS tech. That's a request from Sue Nelson, and I think John's going to speak on behalf of Sue for that position. To just give you a brief background, our engineer that we had up there as a part-time person was basically about a 0.2 FTE. That person has since retired, and so Sue Nelson is essentially looking for a full-time engineer to take that place. So it is an increase of a 0.8 technically as an FTE, but this person would be a full-time person. The reason I'd like to talk about it first is because it impacts the enterprise funds. It does not impact the general fund or any other fund, but the way it is broken up and allocated is about 25% of the salary and benefits and everything are charged out to the water, sewer, storm, and street fund. So, and I have noted on the note section onto the right real quick, just before I hand it off to John to talk about this, is that this essentially accounts for about 0.6 of a percentage increase in utility rates if you do not use fund balance that is in there. So it means if you decided to do an increase of 1% next year in utility rates and include this, you would have to do 1.6 to raise enough revenues to cover in each fund the amount required for the position. So I'll turn it over to John to talk about the position.
Yeah, this is, well, I think at the Budget Committee on Monday, Sue Nelson gave a pretty good recap of what this is about, but she left some pieces out. Essentially, I view this request as a capacity improvement to take things away from some of our busiest people like Jacob and Sue and Jenny and pull some of those resources into doing GIS work, mapping work, updating utility plans, that kind of things that aren't getting done. Frankly, they're
That really matters.
that matter. They're important as build and notes and that kinds of things, but also filtering, supporting the department as well. Particularly with the additional duties that Sue has been she's been providing to Public Works. That kind of lessens her capacity to do some of the things she might otherwise delegate to a person in this capacity. That's
fine.
I had a question. In the past, I know in the building department, we've sent things out. Is this not an opportunity or a department where that's an option? Rather than, just thinking to my own self, in the time that I've been here, the building official was 0.8, 0.9, 0.8, 0.9, and trying to get the building official to full time, and every time it was a budget thing. So I'm apprehensive, given how many times we've done that with people, about going from 0.2 to full FTE, and with the pressure on water rates, our constituents can't have said any clearer how they feel about raising water prices. So it's like, that's a big jump from 0.2 to a full FTE without more conversation. And I'm just wondering if we sent out middle school plans, we've sent out other things, because there are contractual things that we can do that would keep us caught up, or part of that job that could be farmed out, rather than creating a whole new job. That's just my question, if that's an option.
And I've been a real strong advocate of outsourcing where it makes sense, and building department and structural review and things that does make a lot of sense.
So my comment is where I thought we've all been talking about replacing our Public Works Director. So wouldn't that be an additional person on here?
It depends on what the discussion is. So you have Neil that's retiring.
Right.
We're kind of carrying forward that position, so to speak, into next year, knowing that there's going to be some fluctuation in whether you decide to do a Public Works Director, whether you decide to do another combination job, or whatever you decide as a council, but the money that's in there for Neil's salary is still
No, I'm
allocated.
talking about Neil's salary. I'm talking about the job we eliminated 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was.
But what he's saying is that would be Neil's salary,
No,
would be
that's
that.
another job. There's two jobs. I see two jobs. Neil's replacement
And Neil supervisor.
and a Neil supervisor, our Public Works Director, which we've always had up until 10 years ago or
I just said
8 years ago.
if we're going to rearrange,
So
it makes sense.
right now, I think personally, I mean, if we're talking budget here, I can clearly see, and I know that you guys all like to hire out, but I also like to have in-house. We hire everything out, and wheels fall off. And next thing you know, half these people leave. Where are we at? We're stuck relying on the people they were using and not familiar with them. When we have in-house, we have living wage jobs, supporting the community. We're reinvesting in the community. I think it's very vitally important that we be very careful to start subbing out a ton of stuff. And we already do sub out some. And I'm hearing conversation of that. And we did have a point too. And I mean, we always make do with what we got. We always find a way. I've been here 3rd year now, and I'm getting familiar with how this works.
So
the ongoing discussion too is also when you're thinking about hiring additional people is not just thinking, oh, we're going to hire this person for 1 year, but you have additional costs of PERS and insurance that continue to increase. So the more you increase FTEs in the city,
yes,
the more of a cost burden that is for.
Which PERS aren't like they were, Matt. So don't talk like they are, because the tiers 1 and 2 were really bad. I mean, those
tier 3 are still a big portion.
It's worse. Yes, it's worse.
Yeah. Tier 1 and Tier 2 have very good benefits when they retire. Tier 3 has lower benefits, but they are still good, and you are still going to be paying Tier 1, Tier 2, and OPSERP and whatever else they decide.
Disagree that they're worse, because some of these guys
are going to get worse. I will guarantee you that.
Anyways, I think it at least spurs the discussion. If
I don't think it's still an argument. I still don't think it's an argument to not hire a person.
If we need somebody, that's
fine. Yes.
Yeah,
so do we need
one thing that might make it more comfortable is that it's not a permanent position, but perhaps it's a term limited while we get through this reorganization and reevaluate it.
And do we need a full FTE? That's my question. Do we need a full FTE? Could we get by on a 7/10 or 8/10 or 6/10? Is it? That seems to me like that could enter into the equation, and especially when it comes back to retirement issues and those kinds of things.
So
could we hire 2 half-timers? What could we do? Okay, to help to there's a lot of flexibility that we can work with, and if we have to make up our mind tonight.
Well, that I need to know for the budget that's supposed to be approved next Monday of which way you want to go. Now, as far as if you want to approve a dollar amount, which is basically what you're doing tonight, whether you want to have discussions as a department itself when Sue is here and decide whether it's you have $100,000 that have been approved tonight, whether you split that up between 2 0.5s, 1.75 and 1.25, what I'm really looking for is an approval of the funds. So how you split it out, and if you decide to approve it tonight, and then when it actually comes due for a job description, and you have more discussions, and maybe it's not the right choice.
So it was 20. She's asking for 100.
Correct.
So we could say 60.
You have that ability if you would like.
So then, however 60 configures is how 60 configures.
Correct.
Or whatever. Is that that's
Correct.
What you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
To do a full-time FTE, the cost is about $100,000 for a full-time FTE, fully burdened, so that's salaries, insurance, and benefits.
I just
So
think
what you're proposing is like 15,000 instead of 25,000 from each from the water, sewer, storm, and street. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm thinking of a bridge as opposed to going from 0.2 to 1. I'm thinking about let's go somewhere in between.
So however that split is, what you're saying is the staff budget request is 1.0 FTE, and what Ginny is suggesting is approving a 0.6 or a 0.7 or something.
So when I apply for a job and I look at it and it goes part-time, I think, why would I apply part-time? I want quality. I look at this as an investment in our community. This is just me personally, and I'm going to speak, and then whatever the council decides, it is, but I need to get this out. I look at this as an investment into our community. Definitely there is enough work to be done that the person could be full-time, And especially with future growth, I know that that person will be continually busy with all the planning and stuff we have that has to be engineered or drawn or looked at or whatever. They're going to be able to assist our engineering department, and that's the way I feel. So I just had to state that for the record.
As a talking point too, from Keith's perspective, an idea that he brought up too, you could not approve a position right now until you have discussions of what you're going to fully decide to do with Public Works. You as a city council can decide in November or December, hey, yeah, we really do need this person. We're going to reappropriate some money. I put money in contingency for those changes that could happen mid-year. That's why I put money in a contingency. So if you do not want to decide tonight, that's okay. We will approve a budget without the position, but you will have funds in contingency if you want to make that decision down the road. What I'm really looking for is an approval so I can finish the budget for next Monday.
So since we're talking, I'm all about doing the right thing for the city also. Been that way for 18 years now. Not going to change. I feel that doing away with our Public Works Director was a bad decision. And we need to replace that person before we replace an engineer down below. Because it is hurting our city by not having a Public Works Director. That's the way I feel.
On hiring this person, following up what Keith said, we need work done now. Could we hire this person at, say, again, back to point 6, with the possibility that they could apply for full-time later on, where we're discussing the head man to be over all the departments?
Almost anything is possible.
I'm wondering, can I say I'll hire you part-time, and in a later date I can possibly change you to full-time, or is that against the law? That was really the question.
I think that's more of a John and Kathy question. I don't think the answer is yes. I think the answer is more no, but maybe Kathy and John can weigh in on that process.
It's definitely not against the law, but you're limiting who's going to apply because a person who applies for a part-time job is not the same people you're going to get who applies for a full-time job.
Fully aware of that, but I'm always more worried about some places you cannot say this part-time job is going to. That's not against the law.
No.
Okay, that's what my question was.
I have a question for Mr. Locke. How would you proceed? We know how you feel and what your position is.
I would
how
add
would you?
$50,000 to this $100,000 to hire a Public Works Director. So it's going to cost.
So
And it's going to free up our existing Public Works Director to where she can do some jobs also, if it's 0.3 or 0.4 or whatever we need.
And we do currently, just so the council is aware, I'm not sure if you're aware, but and Jacob can probably speak to the GIS portion of it. We currently do farm that out right now to a consulting company. It's not a very large amount, but the idea is to bring that in-house and to build it up more, is my understanding from talking with Sue, is that the GIS person coming into this position would do more than what is being offered as a professional services contract right now.
Yeah, right now the GIS that we have, so we have our own software on 4 computers, but then we have the GIS to the public and the internal one for everybody else. And it's inexpensive, but it's also mundane. And so, if someone could focus on that, you could have a lot more sophisticated system that could help really everybody. GIS is, an ever-evolving tool. And then they could also, because right now I manage the software updates, which isn't huge, but, we just did that, and it's, just communicating with the company and making sure we have all the licenses we need, and that would probably go to that person, as well as other tasks.
So, and I'm not going to disagree with you completely, Councilor Locke, but I'm curious of why Neil's wage does not count.
Because we got to replace Neil also.
He's talking about both,
W-
not either
Maybe,
one.
maybe it's already somebody who we have there.
Well, that's true, but. yeah,
So
you
we
do.
still got a wage freed up.
That would all, I mean, I don't know. That would be our public works director's job to.
We're going to
determine
have to
those
have a
things.
council discussion about this a little bit at a later time.
Mhm.
But I don't think that the money's not there, whatever we decide to do.
Correct. Whatever's approved in the budget for FTEs and positions, that's why I have money in contingencies. If changes happen, if a position needs to be added out of the blue or something, I think to Keith's point, he's looking at, you have Sue and Neil that are co-public works directors, and Neil retires, and Keith is saying instead of doing 2 public works directors, you need to have a supervisor and then a public works director on top of that.
Right.
So the supervisor would essentially, in some essence, take the salary of Neil's position, and then we're going to have another FTE on top of everything, is my understanding of what you're trying to get at.
Right.
So we three have had some conversation a little bit on this, and the wheels aren't going to fall off in between now and then as far as running the city. So, but yes, it's something we do need to discuss for sure. But I would agree. Sorry, John. I would have to. My feelings still remain the same on the engineering. It gets this way every time around budget committee. Usually, this doesn't happen at a council meeting. Usually, it's in the budget committee meeting, so it's kind of a little different.
And it is kind of an extension of the workshop.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit misleading about the engineer, GIS tech. This person is not an engineer. It's a support person. I think Sue mentioned that in the.
She did.
Yeah. It's a much lower staff support.
It's a tech.
Engineer tech.
Engineer tech, yes.
So I guess I'm looking for a general consensus of, do you want to move forward funding this position at $100,000 and a full-time FTE? Or is there another option that you would like to approve?
Could you go for 0.6?
That's up to you to decide.
So we basically need a tech, but now we're discussing what level.
So
It's always been, the request is for an engineer tech.
If we did nothing to the budget for the sewer on all this stuff, 0.6. I'm fairly decent with numbers too, but we should be okay till 2021, even if we did nothing hiring this person. Yes, I looked at the graphs, and yes,
Yes.
it's true. So that being said, 2 years, 2 fiscal years out, we did nothing. We're still okay. Finance guy is crawling out of his skin right now because that's not okay with him. But
Well, if you have a contingency fund for these positions,
It's for the entire fund. It's not specifically for personnel, but anything that comes up.
I'd really like to wait till the dust settles, till we get till we announce a public works director, and we have a superintendent of public works. I would really like to wait until that happens, till we get the hierarchy of public works in place, then fill in, if you've got contingencies, try to fill in our engineering needs for the GIS and for this position. Are we covered there, or do you need that amount tonight to add to your contingency?
No, I have enough in contingency the way the budget is right now that I usually keep anywhere from $500,000 to almost $1 million, especially in the enterprise funds, because there are big projects and emergencies that sometimes happen and come up. So I do appropriate well enough in contingency that you could add a position later if needed.
Yeah, I kind of think that if things start to get placed before we have a public works director and we have a superintendent, for operations, that I just think that we're going kind of putting a cart before the horse
yes.
in a sense. And I'd like to see the hierarchy get into place, and then if there's contingencies, then we can deal with these appointments, knowing that we have work to do.
It's my feeling.
Does the general consensus of the council agree with that, or do you want to throw out another option to? I have to get at least 3 of you.
I can,
If we have enough money to keep going without doing anything, go.
Okay, that's pretty much what I'm.
So,
Hold pat until we have a better solution for the big.
You okay with that?
So I don't know exactly where you guys are going.
So-
part-time, is it?
No.
the idea is that
no
it is
decision on him.
the position.
No, right now.
The budget request from the department will be denied for right now until at a certain time when a public works director and the structure is figured out, and then you can make a decision at that time to add any personnel if it's needed.
Great.
Then the personnel you can add is full-time, this level, plus your director, full-time.
Yeah, well, I just know our head of engineering says it's needed now, so I'm just listening to one of our department heads is all.
Correct.
So,
And these are all requests made by department managers, not me. So
Well, that gives us a sense of urgency to announce a public works director
figure it out.
and get that underway as well.
What Sue talks about is the last time we had this much subdivision activity, there was this many people, and now we're down to this many people.
Yeah.
And so that's what she's kind of, that's the
Based-
basis of her
Yep,
request.
Yep.
So I'm understanding the general consensus of, I think, about 4 out of 5 people. So that's enough to move forward on, and we can go to the next item.
As long as we're talking about this, Rick, can we have Kathy put that on the agenda for our next meeting, is to talk about Public Works Director? So we can get our discussion out of the way and get moving.
That'll be in May.
Yeah, May 1st.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that. That's probably the first or second longest discussion.
Kathy, can you only put like 3 things on the agenda for that work session? Okay, well, we're full, so push them to the next meeting.
No more things. So I'm going to jump down to the very bottom one, which John is going to probably be able to better explain the idea behind this position, because we've been talking about it internally for a little while. Everything in between all runs in the general fund, which is why I brought up my computer and want to show you a graph. And I think the general fund will actually go fairly quick, so I'd like to jump down to the bottom one for the development coordinator and have John talk about that idea and have that discussion. Can I throw you under the bus? John?
So, at least as long as I've been here, there's been this holy grail of customer service and improving permit times and review and getting permits turned around in quicker, not only our own internal projects, but the private projects as well. And the notion of having a development coordinator would be kind of a float in between all the departments, between building, planning, engineering, and the public works, probably the non-operational side of public works, the review internal, to be essentially a project advocate for whatever projects, organizing at kind of if you think from a top-down approach, kind of a bottom-up, this person is kind of inserted at the bottom to kind of work peer level, or maybe even a little bit below that, to organize and move things, and having things like weekly meetings, sitting down, reviewing the status of all the projects, who's next, what needs to be done, what that person can do to facilitate that, information. Also assisting planning with noticing and some of the administrative duties that you can kind of fill those gaps. Building, Heidi's, I just saw her walk out the door at 8 o'clock for probably the I don't know how many nights in a row trying to keep up with this building surge of activity we have right now. So serving as a permit technician and in that role as far as moving permits, supporting Mike DeRoya. And
Every department needs a snorkel because we're drowning. This person is the snorkel.
This is the helper that we've kind of been looking for a while. For Jacob, Jenny,
This
and
is my
Heidi,
retirement, right?
And
This is
this is that
This is to
person.
get me out of here. This position.
you have a number?
So.
Yes, and with our public projects as well.
Yes.
Yes. So it's a budget ask. It affects enterprise and general fund. General fund.
Yeah, can touch general fund. There's a lot of different ways you can fund this position and a lot of avenues. I wrote down economic development and enterprise just as probably the main two, but like John says, it touches building, administration, and a few other things. So
I think if it's gonna help, they're gonna be coordinating and kind of checking weekly, where we're at projects.
It's long
And
overdue.
You
continue,
could just say anything to get rid of Keith would be great.
continue to follow these projects. I've heard a lot about that too. In our building department, sometimes they feel like, why is it sitting on so and so's desk and this and that, and if that can be that person, then maybe this person can help that speed that up, and maybe not only that, they can also. Here's what I find is sometimes our staff doesn't give the person the next step. They expect them to know it, and not everybody knows the next step. So maybe be more forthcoming with what the next step is in the process, and
Keeping stuff
fees,
moving.
and how long it takes, and that takes an approval. Because people don't know how to ask the right questions, or they come up here and they're intimidated by people who have degrees.
That's definitely the case.
Yeah.
I look in my, I've been doing this for 18 years. I remember in past jobs, people were like, wow, you're like family, because you had time to really be able to shepherd them through the process. And it's really difficult to really help people right now just because we're trying to keep up.
Yep.
So that's, you nailed it.
This could take a lot of pressure off of both you and building.
Yep.
This
And
person.
I know Heidi's pretty good about doing something like that. If
But
we can
she
find
needs
another
help.
Heidi, that'd be
The
great.
Heidi clone.
Yeah. Yes.
So, general consensus of okay with this position moving forward as far as budgeting. There's still job descriptions and discussion and all that stuff. So, okay. All right.
Okay, now onto the big general fund.
You can throw everything away except the sergeant and the 3 patrol officers. Got you, Joe.
This is the main graph that I want to show you. This is several years of history, and I know the numbers and the data is actually pretty small, but I will quickly explain. So, red line are expenses, green line are revenue. The purple rectangular boxes are the ending fund balance. Your yellow line is your reserve policy that you have approved in your financial policies to not go below 20%. John and I's perfect goal in a perfect world is to stay around 30%, and that is the blue line.
Yep.
Okay? So we start off at 2013-14. I started here the 16-17 year, and 1 year of history, where I expect and believe that we will be at the end of this fiscal year in June 30th, what the current budget is, and then the forecasting years for the future. Okay? Now included in this budget, so this upcoming year, 19-20 budget, I want to inform you that as it sits right now, I have included the communications utility bills, which is a $10,000 request, as well as that accounts for some of the cost for programs that Crystal was talking about for keeping track of history and all those public records requirement things for social media. So that is included. I have included the 3 building requests, which are basically anticipated expenses for their transition to a new state software program for building permits. So they've already signed the contract and are starting to move forward with that project, but there are some anticipated costs in the future for that. So those 3 are included in the budget. The recreation near the top, the full-time rec coordinator and the regular part-time recreation lead, those are in the budget, as well as those are in the budget because there are anticipated revenues of either the recreation fee and the potential grant that we are still waiting to hear back on. We applied for about a $99,000 grant. We should hear back in April or May. So I would like to just point out that those 2 positions are in the budget, but they are contingent on the revenue being there to help pay for them. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So the police requests, and Joe is here to explain in more depth all of these. I'm just going to quickly go through and tell you he's requested, or him and Brian in the department have requested a sergeant's position, 2 patrol officers. The reason it says 3 is because the idea is that you will promote a sergeant from within, and then that opens a patrol position. So moving somebody from a patrol to a sergeant is essentially about another $30,000, and then that opens up a patrol position. So that's why the police officers are at 3 right now as a request.
So is that number correct then?
The 372
Yeah, for 2 officers?
for 3 officers. It's $124,000 per officer.
What's the total? What would the total then be for sworn officers?
For sworn patrol officers, it's about $124,000.
What would the number
number of
be?
officers.
What would the number of
That
officers?
would be 3 officers.
What would the number of officers
Total.
be?
Oh, in your department. Joe, I think that would jump it up to, how many sworn up patrol? You have 11 right now?
That
Patrol
would jump it up to
officers.
21.
So for
21 total.
21 total for
all
MD.
officers.
That includes the 2 school resource officers, right?
Yes, and includes the chief and myself,
Okay.
with the total 21.
So the other request is to make the currently part-time record specialist into a full-time position. Personnel uniforms, that is about $8,500 per new employee, and then you have some other materials and services that are just general requests for some improvements, and Joe can talk about those if you'd like to hear more about those. What is included in the budget that you see there and the numbers that you see there is the sergeant position, 1 police patrol officer, and then everything below it pertaining to it. So everything that was requested, the only thing that I have not put into this budget are 2 patrol officers out of the 3 that are requested. And the reason I did not put that into the budget is at the end of when everything is said and done, I show that I'm going to have, between revenue and expenses, I'm going to have about $27,000 left to spend without having to dip into our fund balance. So that was kind of the breaking point of where that 0 is. So negative, or $27,000 left this year, with forecasted expenses moving into the future years. I show we should have about $10,000, and then we kind of dip into the red because those are PERS years when the PERS rates changes and go up. So we expect obviously some heavier increases there, but then the revenue kind of catches back up as we continue to grow, and it goes back down to 31 and 74. As you get into years 4 and 5, it's a little more fuzzy. So I try and focus on the budget year and maybe 1 or 2 years, and we always look at this every year. So the ask is do you want to, I've put in obviously the sergeant's promotion and 1 new patrol officer. Do you want to dip into the ending fund balance of your reserves to fund the additional officers? And I'm sure Joe can add some more take onto that request.
What will that do? Tell us what the quality of product will be for our citizens.
You bet. You know, I think the biggest thing here, I'll start with the sergeant position. I think you have to look at the current state of your department and how young our staff is and how we're bringing on more officers. So there's a much higher emphasis on recruiting, retention, and hiring, and staying up to date on that. And then the question, of course, is who's going to train these people and get them on the road? And so the need for the sergeant to be able to do more administrative tasks while having supervision for the patrol officers on the road, and it's creating leadership positions. It's forcing people into leadership roles that, traditionally we've kind of left at the executive level, and we'd like to bring some of that down into some of the, first line supervisors. I think with the officers, the bottom line, policing's changed. There's all kinds of models as far as, using officers per 1,000 with the population, looking at crime statistics. And really it comes down to, we've had some discussions today about us being urban and the things that we want to accomplish. I think it comes down to quality of life and the way that the police department can have an impact on that with education pieces. You look at things like First Thursday, and there's really just, I think, a real need in any community to have officers doing more than just enforcing laws. You talked about, Mayor Scholl, the SRO position. We got a second one, and that's been good, but that came from existing staff. So an officer really left the road to go into that role. And those are good, but I think we laugh and joke a lot about the lip sync video that we did last year, but it's interesting to look back at the response that we got from that, and that's a good indication of how policing's changed. 21 years ago when I started, if I would have tried that, I would have been run out of the department. You just didn't do that back then. So I think we would like to really increase the self-initiated activity that Chief Greenway's really been pushing. But again, there's more to that than just the enforcement piece. There's city events. We've really expanded on that. Halloween Town has gotten bigger. We got lucky a few times with getting outside resources, and that's really, we found that to not be sustainable. 13 nights, we've kind of done some different things over the years with that. We've done it, past administrations have been, hey, swing down, stop by if you can, check it out. We've had reserves do it. That was cumbersome. We had a retired chief become a reserve, and he did it for a year. These just weren't sustainable. So this year we've allotted the time to have full-time officers work those events. Now, right now, that's going to come out of the overtime because we don't have the staffing. But we are going to commit to that with additional staffing. We want positions that really focus on these events to staff these automatically instead of having these sort of clandestine meetings about, well, geez, who's going to work this? How are we going to do this? If we have the resources, we can already have people on regular duty working these events, which the city benefits, and I think obviously the citizens benefit as well from seeing us and having that face that they're familiar with.
Thank you.
I think one of the facts of this request is whether we have 15, 16, 17 allocated, there has pretty perpetually been vacancies.
Yeah.
And really it's helped balance some of the budget from year to year.
Yeah, if you look in the middle and you see that purple bar that raises up, the highest that it has been, a good portion of that is because we've had vacancies in police, and that's a savings to the general fund because those aren't hired. So that's why some of those purple bars jump up at the end of the fiscal year, because we don't fill positions. So it has helped balance the budget over the years.
The police station is just totally different than any other department. I mean, it never fails. The last 10 years, we get a full crew. 6 months later, we're 2 or 3 short again. It just never fails. And just like we're full now, but I'll guarantee you, it isn't going to be that way in 6 months. either they get hurt, they go on, or just all kinds of different things happen. So right now we're dealing with one just got out of school, but we got 3 more going to school now, or will be going to.
Yeah, so one just started Monday.
Right.
One just graduated a few weeks ago, and then we're looking at starting one on April 29th, which all of you will meet on May 1st, of course. So, but again, this is something that.
But they're another at least 6 to 9 months away from being on the street, right?
Right, and getting, talk about getting 2 or 3 openings. I think that does make us much more attractive to certified officers as well. We also went to different shifts that, are certainly more attractive to officers, certainly the millennials as well. So.
I just know from a standpoint of budgeting last year, I mean, what people were scratching for and what we gave the police department was a lot. I mean, I'm just going to be honest and frank with it, and it was. And here we are again. I know, and I get it. But, I mean, Margaret was fighting for a 0.2 or a halftime for library and had to fight to get that. And what else did we do? Not too many more other things that we allocated money for positions on.
Not a huge amount.
No, Aaron needed it for audit.
Yeah. So you approved a wastewater treatment plant position.
One of the new positions the city's hiring. And then we gave 2 positions last year to the police department. Is that correct? We created the SRO.
You created the SRO, which is partly funded by the school district. We share that cost. We created the part-time record specialist.
Yep.
And
I think that was it.
Is that it? Yeah, for the police. Yeah, I think that was about it.
But when I started here, you had 16 sworn officers. 6 years ago, we had 16. So, and now we're talking 21. So that's significant.
But how many did we have 10 years ago, Joe?
Right. When I started in '98, we had
were short.
18, and then we got up over 20 there for a while. And
Only
then
at 23 for a while?
I don't think we were that high. I think we were right around 21, 22 or something like that. But we also had 2 code enforcement and 2 clerical staff that were full-time as well.
Right.
So.
So if the way this is budgeted, if we gave 1 position and sergeant's position, which allowed you to promote from within and give some leadership to the rest of the guys, and that's what you got that.
That's what we have right here is the promotion of the sergeant position
So that
and
was
then 1
22
position.
total with everybody. Is that correct? Because you're only going to a sergeant.
No, 22, did you?
If we hired 2 or hired
1.
1.
That would be 19.
19.
19. Okay, I don't know. I had
We'd get to 21 if we hired all 3.
Oh,
Correct.
okay.
The reason to replace the sergeant is we took a sergeant and made them lieutenant, right? So we lost the sergeant.
So I agree policing
I
is
like
very,
that
very
idea.
important.
The graph shows 19. Does that graph show 19?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It shows the promotion of the sergeant position and 1 patrol
And 1.
position.
Yep.
Because that's pretty much as close as I could get to that 0 point when I showed you the $27,000 that I have left. So.
Okay.
So, but the request is for 2 other officer positions. So I wanted to be clear before presenting the budget on Monday that is that what the council wants to do, or do you want to fund those 1 or 2 other patrol positions? That's the conundrum that you have to decide. And it could very well be, just like you did with the engineering position, it can be something that can be added later. You do have funds in contingency just in the general fund. I usually keep about $1 million in the general fund because the general fund impacts so many different departments and so much funding. So
we could do this for now, and then we could always add more later.
you can.
To propose a balanced budget to our budget committee to do our homework and
Mhm.
due diligence, we should give them a balanced budget, not a budget in arrears.
Correct.
I agree with that.
is best.
Did you want to say anything, John?
Oh,
You look like you're
you
about
probably
to
balance it, but it's the
yeah.
trend that you set forward. If you're starting to use reserves to balance the budget
Yeah.
for labor, that's going to not get better. That's gonna
Not good.
Yeah, it drops off pretty fast.
Correct. Yeah. The purple bar stacks get a little bit lower every single year, obviously.
I mean, when we're talking about equipment, you're only going to buy that equipment. You're not going to buy that equipment every year. But person, they stay forever.
Yes and no. I think you could argue about the materials and services that they kind of creep up every single year. They may be one-time purchases, but then next year you have some one-time purchases, and it's an ongoing small increase.
Yeah, I
so to
don't
speak.
see an increase in council reserves here. And I think there should be. No, I honestly do think there should be with as much as we got going on and have utilized that.
So your in the budget as it stands right now is your current stipend, your current materials and services, which includes $10,000 in council discretionary.
Yes.
Whether you choose to increase that is up to you as a council to change that in the
really
budget.
Tapping that lately. I mean,
If you
As we give it away.
Yeah,
I know.
right now you have spent a $7,500 out of that $10,000 as of today. Okay, you always have contingency.
We have Founders Day, or not Founders. We have Citizens Day coming up this fiscal year.
Correct, and some of those expenses do fall into July because of when we get the bills or anything like that. And I will also say that that's somewhat what you have contingency funds for. If things come up out of the blue that you want to do, you can tap that as an on needed. It's not. It's not a nice practice that I like to speak publicly about because you should be spending what you budget, and there's a reason we have contingency and unappropriated fund amounts at where they're at, so we can continue good trends and continue on a good basis for the future. And having a nice contingency and having those purple bars be so high is very good for when the economy tanks and we can continue to tread water and not have to let go of positions and things that you've done in the past. So
that said, that $10,000 figure was kind of a function of the revenue sharing that we just stopped giving revenue sharing to a lot of communities that relied on it, frankly, and the transit with their bus matches and the food bank and the Amani and others that came to the council every year and asked for that. So if you wanted to up that, to have that flexibility to have entertain those kinds of requests, that would be a perfect place to do it. And it sounds like with the one officer proposal, there's probably a good 20,000 that could still make the budget balance.
Well, that's if you throw everything else away.
No.
No, the 27 that so you would get the sergeant, the one position, and everything else that you see listed. So the recreation is included, the 3 building requests are included, and the communications thing are included in these numbers that you are looking at right now.
And we're not going to hear the end of this because
Yes.
you got the majority last year too. So that's just the way we're gonna hear.
The police department is obviously a large expense in the general fund.
Big before you go home.
But I know that we're not supposed to delineate the pot tax,
Correct.
but kind of in my head, you never said it outright, that was part of the reason why the second school resource officer was a give me, because we have that tax money. It's designed for prevention, education, and intervention, and it seems like an SRO is the perfect place to spend that money.
Correct. The marijuana money goes into the general fund as part of the revenue sharing program from the state, and then the police department has expenses like SRO and trainings and all that stuff that are expensed out of the general fund as well.
Okay, so I think does everybody have a direction that they have in mind? I think
I'm going to loan you my hat, and at this year's community picnic, you can pass both of our hats around.
For
the general fund.
For the general fund. We'll just cut more timber.
For the council stipend.
Timber money goes into the economic development fund.
Yeah, economic development. That's right. Yeah.
So, general consensus okay with?
I think it looks pretty good.
So 19, are we increasing the council discretionary funds from 10,000 to 30,000?
So we still have that 27?
Yes.
Yeah.
30, that's crazy.
Now you can't always
Yeah,
keep
that-
the
that-
27 in
then when
contingency.
somebody comes in, we got money. Yep.
Just want to
So
throw that
when-
saving there.
When the school shows up,
No, or when Habitat for Humanity, if we have to.
we'd have offset
We have
dollars.
to, yep.
Could we use it for that?
Yes, you can.
So then we'd have money for when something.
So
like
basically,
comes
that
up.
whatever money you would have to say you wanted to forgive $7,000 in SDC charges, you could take that $7,000 out of the council discretionary, and,
Probably.
and it would just be transferred into the SDC funds.
What?
Yeah, well, with that, yep. Okay. So, I think you have direction, I think.
So
everybody-
increasing council discretionary, and then everything you see on this list with respect to the sergeant's position and one patrol position.
Yep,
Okay.
everything on the list, including the top one, the engineering.
Everything except 2 policemen.
Correct. Everything except two patrolmen. Patrol persons. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Okay, so, well, I don't really have a lot to report. It's been rainy, there ain't no good fishing. No, the city has been going gangbusters lately. You know, Jacob was talking about everything that they had on the queue, and we got a lot going on. I mean, there's, you know, not only are we building, but we're also planning for the future, and it just sometimes can get, can be a lot. And I think this budgeting process, I think that that person that can help the development coordinator is going to be huge, in my opinion. I kind of look forward to finding, hopefully we find that right person there, that position. So, that's all I got to report. And let's go to, oh wait, I forgot. Counselor Lott, here's your wage for your retirement.
Yeah, your retirement package.
It's $1. All right, Council President Morton.
You know what? I had my say tonight when the Parks Commission came up and gave their excellent presentation and revealed their work that they had been doing, and I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about us setting the groundwork with promoting our city as a certified city, that we're eligible for grants, certified local government, a CLG, I believe it's called. We did that as a council some time ago. And boy, just setting all the groundwork seems like such tedious efforts, but it certainly pays off and pays huge dividends as we move forward. Anyway, that's kind of what was in the back of my mind as I was seeing those individuals give that presentation, and the possibilities and potentials of getting grants, private and public as well. That's it.
Thanks, Councilor Locke. Don't spend all that in one place, by the way.
Other than, I would really like to go into executive session because I found out a lot of information today, but about our tenant at the mill site that I don't think we should discuss unless we're in executive.
Well, we can do a special hearing or a meeting if we need to.
So other than that,
what, 3 days notice?
I will talk about one thing over there is
3
that,
days notice, I do believe.
actually I sent John and Jacob yesterday.
48
Our Cascades is in the process of building another fence between them and ACSP, and they have no permit. They didn't ask us if that was okay, and they're just building a fence right down the middle of a roadway. So we need to decide what to do about that. And that's one thing we're reporting. The other thing is stuff that I don't want to talk about in an open mission. So that's all I have.
I'll get together with John Walsh and inform him and
He's been informed.
Yeah, we'll go. We'll go.
Yeah, the other question is that the land division has several access easements on it, which is in areas that are kind of intimate with Cascades. And when you sent me that email, I'm like, oh man, that's the first thing I thought about.
We'll get a hold of the mill manager and talk to him.
okay. Councilor Carlson.
I just wanted to say I was encouraged by all the public comment today. It was super insightful, and it was just a really good process. It's nice to have lots of participation, and I wanted to thank Jacob for, and Lieutenant Hogue for filling in for our folks that are out this week. It's nice to see different faces and a different perspective. I appreciate having people to step up in the team and fill those spots.
Yep. Jacob, we'd like to have you down here every so often, maybe once a month or something, every other council meeting, just because
You got nothing but time.
Yeah. No, you're a wealth of information, and we appreciate your hard work. So, Councilor Topaz.
I'm coming up to speed with Margaret on arts.
Mike.
Can't
Mike.
hear you.
I'm coming up to speed with Margaret on arts and cultures and all that stuff, so I'm wandering down the road.
Okay. Youth Council Virtual.
So on April 28th, the Youth Council is doing the spring cleanup, which is the area behind the courthouse. There's a bunch of pots, and so we're replacing the old plants with new ones. I think we're taking that up from something else. Somebody else did that before us?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it used to be a group, and they've gotten older and they're moved on.
Yep.
So
Okay, so we're taking that up, and we're going to be going around asking for donations. We wanted to request that the city would back us, I guess. I mean, not give us, but like $400 for anything we don't get donations for. So we're getting donations, and then any prices that we can't cover on our own, then we would ask the city for up to $400, not $400 exactly.
yeah, they're doing plants, soil, and then the lunch snacks afterwards, like they've always done in the past.
Yeah,
And
it's
they're going out, the students have all selected things to go ask for.
Yep.
And in the event that something they can't get for free, they've asked if the council would cover up to $400 maximum of the offset of that cost.
Have they been alerted to the people down in Scappoose with the?
We're working directly with Miss Judy Thompson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's come to our meeting and she's helping us.
So I hear a ask for the entire council on our discretionary funds of up to $400 that they're going to need between now and our next meeting. So I'm okay with that. A head nod. Discretionary funds, we can just do a head nod, yes. Councilor Carlson, yes.
I left it quiet because that's my group.
I don't even think you need a head nod on that.
I know, but.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's
you-
my
yeah,
group, so
it's
I
there.
let the rest of the group.
Okay, yep, thank you. All right.
Anything else?
No.
Oh, I forgot. It's kind of a half of a go back. Vishal missed the meeting. The two things they're doing is they're doing the 28th,
Uh-huh.
but Judy Thompson, that's always done the cleanups and the plantings, has refocused her efforts with mental health wellness in our community, and she's having a mental health fair at our rec center on May 4th. And some of the members of the youth council are going to be volunteering and supporting Judy in that effort as well, because she just came and gave her talk, and basically everything she said, the youth council says, "Yeah, can we help you? Yeah,
Yeah,
can we help
Mammy,
you?"
she's really
So
active,
they
yep.
really kind of got on her bandwagon and gave her some energy, and she gave them some energy. So it's
Nice.
super cool.
Cool, yep. All right, department reports. Lieutenant Hogue.
I have nothing more from this afternoon.
Okay. Jacob?
As I alluded to, the public hearings for the Riverfront Connector are coming up, so you'll see that pretty soon. Our final public meeting for the housing needs analysis is coming up. So after that, then we have to adopt the plan. And kind of my overall plan is once we get past those, then we can start focusing on some of these city properties. Probably the first one, except for just things that happen at the industrial park, like the wetlands, that's still going. I guess I should give you a status update on that.
Yeah.
So Stacy, our wetlands consultant, finished all the mapping. AKS was going to go out there and survey it. Then once they have the map, then they'll work to get concurrence with the Division of State Lands. So that is moving.
Yep.
But probably the first thing, aside from the industrial park, will be the Millard Road Hospital property. Figure that stuff out, and then move on to what's now called Jacobs Mountain, the vacation, and that stuff. So it's all kind of mapped in my mind, but we got to get through some stuff.
Yep. Okay.
But,
Thanks for the update. Margaret.
I thought I'd end this day with a little note of levity. This is the St. Helens Public Library entry into the puppet competition that was statewide this year in order to celebrate National Library Week. And we did not win, but I just want to give credit to Gretchen and Crystal for having done an excellent job producing our entry. Yes.
Yeah, I could hear it a little bit, but not very loud. Just hit play and see what happens.
You want a puppet mascot who's trustworthy, loyal, and enthusiastic. You want a puppet who's a very good boy. Who's a good boy? I would trust Dog to babysit Aaron any day. Who's a good boy?
I can't even remember when Dog joined the library, but he's always been here, and we can always count on him.
Oh, thanks. Who's a good boy? If I could only take one puppet with me out on preschool storytime visits, it would be Dog. He's always so excited to meet the kids and spend time with them, and he loves to sing and be silly with them. It's true! Who's a good boy? Dog from the St. Helens Public Library. Dog is a very good boy, and you should support him for Oregon's top puppet mascot. I'm Dog from the St. Helens Public Library, and I approve this very good message.
Crystal says she doesn't have video skills and editing, but I thought that flag waving over the top of the video was pretty effective. So she's coming along great.
Thanks, Margaret. Matt?
I need to have a quick go back from the work session today for just some clarification as I was thinking about this more. I'm sorry, I just need a roadmap to where to go. So you saw the master plan for Godfrey Park. It was what was in the master plan. It is something that the Parks Commission gave a consensus to move forward and start building and moving forward on it. There was Councilor Topaz who disagreed with some of the things in the master plan and asked for some more time, and Councilor Morton suggested more time. This is on our Parks master plan of part of that $500,000 to start working. So going back to the drawing board takes a little bit of time. I wanted to make sure that was the consensus of the entire council and just not two individuals, to make sure that we were following a good public process of why we are not, or how you want to move forward.
Well, I think you testified yourself that it's going to be an ongoing process. So if we have a good start, I feel that maybe more people can get involved as you continue to develop it.
So it is a starting process, but Councilor Topaz was against all of the pod area ideas. So I don't want to start building a pod area if that's not what the city council had as a vision.
I personally like the vision. Like I said, I like it. It was a maintenance issue for me. Was
Yeah.
the nightmare.
That was me as wanted to have input into some of the materials.
Mm-hmm.
So then the materials made sense from a sustainability standpoint. Because we're seeing more of those kinds of play areas around everywhere you go. That's what people are trading out is, I know it looks cookie cutter on the thing, but it is free play. It is more designed to stimulate imagination and get them to do things, rather than just a play structure that you can only play on a certain way. So I understand that piece, but the labyrinth piece, there's better options than what's pictured. There's clarifications with the sensory garden. There's clarifications about benches and paths, and I think that's really just part of the process.
Correct, and
That's
we did.
not throw it all out. That's
Well, that's
smooth it
that's what I want to clarify, because that's where I kind of got a little misconstrued of how we're going to move forward. And I will say some of that was because we did kind of rush through that presentation. Sue and Jenny, who I know would have loved to have been here and presenting probably a lot more better information than I could from the limited experience that I have on this project. And they can definitely share some more of those ideas about sustainability and maintenance because they have more experience on that. So what I'd like to suggest is before moving forward with another committee or looking at other ideas, I'd like to have an opportunity for them to come back, present more information to you specifically about some of the materials that are being used and how it'll be maintained, because they obviously have more in depth than myself on this project, and I just happen to be the only one left here that knew about it. So
I had a question that's not specific to the design of Godfrey Park, but to the priority list. There was conversation at some point because of reduced park funding about making, choosing 2 or 3 parks to make the best and minimalize maintenance on the other parks. I know from living in the neighborhood that is 2 blocks from Godfrey Park, that's where my son goes, that is not a high maintenance park currently. Probably July through September, it's a no maintenance park. And so that's why I wonder is like if we're stretching our crews even thinner than they already are. And so that's a conversation to have about how did we get there, because I know in past years they've struggled with keeping up with just getting the grass down at McCormick Park. And with all the additional space over at our industrial park, they've struggled to just keep up with the lawn and the limbs. And this is an intricate park setting, and I just want to make sure that we've really, before we stretch that team any further, and I don't see them as a line item on our budget. Do you know what I'm saying?
correct. And so Sue, Neil, and Thad were all there when we walked through the consultants and talked about ideas. So those were definitely ideas that were brought up.
Okay.
And probably something obviously Sue
And also
can
on the
discuss.
priority list is fixing the broken equipment at both parks, correct?
Correct.
All right. I just want to make sure, because we have broken things that we've had testimony in this building for the last 2 years. Why are we buying new stuff when we have broken stuff? And so I want to make sure that's on the list.
We have a big laundry list, and we will get to those items. It's just a matter of how fast staff can actually do that.
All right, so I think the follow-up with Sue and Jenny is the right.
Yeah, that's what I'm for.
Yep.
Super.
Okay. I just wanted some clarification so I knew kind of where to go when I see them next. So thank you very much.
Yep. Okay. Kathy.
There's a vacancy on the Columbia Learning Center board that's a city appointment, and the term expires at the end of May. So I need the council to be thinking about an appointment for that, so that we can get somebody appointed either May 1st or May 15th. So if everybody could be thinking about somebody to appoint to that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
That's it.
John?
You want a tourism report?
Oh, yeah. Forgot. Sorry, Tina. Been a long day.
That's the
You better go to that.
Tina Curry. So I just wanted to give a report on what activities I've been concentrating on. Besides the 4th of July, I've been looking for ways to include nonprofits in my tourism activities and agendas. And I'm working with several groups that I didn't work with before for some upcoming activities that will include them in Halloween Town. And we currently have over we hit a threshold. We went over 6,000 likes on Columbia County events for the first time this week. And we had over 1,200 views this past week of our new Hot Topics, stories, and interviews, which is really good when you consider that's almost 10% of our population. So that is getting traction. We put 2 bunnies on the street this past weekend for people to find downtown and put some kids to work, so that's always good. I just got an alert that Hallow Pizza won the $25,000 or $20,000 business loan.
Who did?
Hallow Pizza. It's a pizza cart, a wood-fired pizza cart. That's kind of extravagant.
And that's the Wana 5 rolling.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And 5's forgiven and
yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. And I found out they named their pizza company Hallow Pizza because they love Halloween Town so much that they wanted to bring their business to St. Helens. So there's another victory. Working with John on the Travel Oregon report that we're going to send on some of the accomplishments that we have and benchmarks that we've made. And we have a new activity that is going to be a free community activity that the rec center is helping me with. And that will be July 13th and 14th. And it's going to be for all ages. And it involves kind of like a Mardi Gras theme in July. And we have this fantastic band that's coming from New Orleans. And I'm working with Plymouth Pub and Running Dog Brewery and Molly and Philip and the new business that just moved in next to Running Dogs. And the rec department to do all kinds of activities and just entertain. It's just going to be a really fun day for everybody to just come and celebrate on First Street.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Tina. All right. John.
There may or may not be a fish caught during the.
I know.
Yeah,
well,
Salmon Derby
it's
with
a
the-
muddy river right now.
Muddy as the river is. So yeah, I've got a couple things here. The NOFO, it's called. It's a notice of funding opportunity for the build grant. It was announced yesterday, so we now have the deadline. Is anticipated that they made the announcement last year. There was $1.5 billion to this program. There's going to be less than that, $900 million this year. We've already engaged the consultants and the team, and we have meetings already set up on the front end of this to kind of move forward and just give the best application we can possibly give. You know, last year we submitted a very strong proposal. There was 870 some applications, and they funded, the top 11%, I think, and we were within the 15% range. So we did have some weaknesses. We're going to work on those, and really looking forward to getting the boardwalk funded. I think that's going to be a real iconic feature to the city. There will be probably a trip to Washington, D.C. to advocate for it again at some time in the future. So, but Sand Island Camping, we have this lease agreement in place now. There's still some loose ends, or it's just the beginning, really. People were saying that it's done, but it's really just started. There's some things, conversations with Department of State Lands, conversations that we've had with the Marine Board, there's been outreach to the Boating Association to talk about that, and all of that's been pretty positive. Embedded in that is a change to the dock use regulations, this permitting system, whether we charge for these overnight stays or we have a permit for overnight stays, and what that amount is. Marine Board was kind of pushing back on this nominal $2 fee for whether it was every night they stayed or if it was just for the 72 hours that they stayed. And personally, I don't really care. I think most of it's about our ability to regulate the docks, and when they come and get their permit and they're writing their boat numbers down, they're writing who they are, their contact information, and the time that they were at the dock. So that helps us with the enforcement piece of that more than anything.
I think it should be $2 a night. Myself.
Okay. There'll be plenty of time to talk about that when we bring the legislation forward. The municipal broadband investigation is really got some dirt under its heels there. There's we're working with Portland's IT department, Dan Davis that came. We've engaged with his consultant. They're engaging with another consultant. We're going to start having regular meetings, and it's turning into something. The RV park feasibility is underway. One of the things, I had a meeting last week with one of our local growers, marijuana growers, and one of the smaller licenses, and they're really pointing out the disparity in big versus small, where we did away with our community impact agreement in lieu of, we had a $2,500 license fee before, then we made it $5,000. They felt there was a gross inequity that all the business classes are treated the same as far as your retailers and your growers and your processors, and the margins within those industries are vastly different, especially not right now with the overburden. And they were suggesting perhaps a change or modification to the marijuana license, specifically related to growers, and that it be based off, rather than a flat rate applicable to all classes, would be tiered based off of a square foot of canopy kind of number. They threw out a number of $1 a square foot. So where we have some businesses that have, if it was 1,000 square feet, it'd be $1,000.
I like $1 a square foot.
Whereas the other ones that have more would pay more. So, and good conversation. I said that I would bring it to the council and test that interest.
10,000 square foot building, that's 10 grand, right?
If you have 10,000 square feet of canopy, it would be 10,000, yes. Under that number. But so on Friday, I'm going to be out at an opportunity. I signed up for an Opportunity Zone conference, a little bit different than the information we've received at some of these government meetings. These are going to be people that do opportunity fund managers that do have these investment pools, along with the state representatives. It's not kind of an all-day thing in Portland on Friday, so I was going to be out for that.
Could be utilized as a tool for the city.
A number of things, especially because the city has a big swath of the waterfront here that is in an opportunity zone. And even some of the investments that development interests are coming in right now, they're talking about using an opportunity fund investments to do these investments as their backers in these projects.
Cool.
So on the private side.
Yep.
So some time ago, with your blessing, I nominated myself for the Oregon City County Managers Board and was accepted to that board. And one of the duties of that board is to attend their conferences and participate in the planning and this and that. And they have a spring conference that overlaps our next meeting on May 1st. So
Where's the meeting?
Hood River. So.
It's upriver, it's okay.
Yep. Anyway, it's a joint meeting between Oregon and Washington managers, and they're usually really good. And I guess if I can, I'm okay with coming back.
Oh, you're excused. No.
Okay.
We could go there.
We can manage it.
I guess lastly, we had a lot of conversation earlier about the REC program, and really it's been almost a community development movement. We've recognized the need to do this REC program, and the amount of direction and positive feedback that we've got is just really fantastic over the last year we've been doing it. And we've been kind of cobbling it together with staff effort, grants from here and there, but the long-range funding isn't really that's not a good plan. So in a lot of respects, it's the analogy of building an airplane while you're flying it. I think that just almost fits perfectly with this, that we have a direction we want to go. We're trying not to crash and just keep this program going and with all the positive things it's bringing to the community. The connections in school district and the youth and the daycare piece of it, or the after-school program, all those things.
I agree.
Yep. That's it.
Okay. Anybody need to go back? Not from earlier today. Okay. We're adjourned.